Let's get this ball rolling. You guys, here it is. This is our bingo of the day. Take a screenshot if you need to. Every day those squares switch around. Remember, once you get 5 in a row, either across, horizontal, diagonal, vertical, whatever, shout that out to either Grace or Christina. Christina, you want to remind everyone what they win the right to do should they get a bingo?
You get an option to either ask Dustin's mom anything about him.
Anything.
Or option 2, to give Dustin an area of the museum and he will tell a true and fascinating story about it.
Which museum?
The American Museum of Natural History in New York City.
Right, which is a bingo square. We've already knocked one off. Perfect. All right, so you guys, that is our bingo. I'm going to show that one more time just so everyone can take another quick gander. Grace, I think you dropped that in the chat box as well so people can download it. Again, 5 across any direction. Shout that out to Christina or to Grace. Let's get this ball rolling. You guys, I'm incredibly excited today. We're talking about dinos. We're talking about insects. But most importantly, we're going to start every single one of these the exact same way. And that is with our dino of the day. Here it is. This is our dinosaur of the day. This is Alvarezsaurus, named for an Argentinian physician and historian whose last name was Alvarez. So if and when you find a dino, you can literally name it anything you want. This is Alvarezsaurus. It was only about 40 pounds or so medium-sized dog. I'm really excited to see the drawings at the end of our time together that you guys have rendered from Alvarezsaurus. Remember, the colors are speculative, so you can change those up a little, maybe change the featheration a little bit, but you need to name it as well. I want to know if it's like Doug the Alvarezsaurus or Sarah the Alvarezsaurus. Something for scale as well. Remember, without something for scale, it's just bad science. This is Alvarezsaurus. We're going to talk a little bit about why specifically Alvarezsaurus is our dino of the day. But first, we need to introduce our special guest expert, Phil Torres. Cue the air horn. Hey, Phil. Phil, where are you? Where are you zooming from?
I'm zooming from Seattle. I used to be in New York just like you, and now I'm in Seattle. And I've got a giant backyard full of flying dinosaurs and insects. So
I've seen a lot of different species of animals on your Insta story. We had bunnies one day, right?
Oh yeah, Easter came right in time. Eats my veggies.
Perfect timing. So Phil is a fellow science communicator. He's an entomologist, studies and loves bugs. He's a jungle explorer. He's also now a TV star, which we'll get to in a little bit later. But Phil, you are not, well, I mean, you are special, but you are not special in the sense that you are going to get put through the ringer right now, like all of our special guests. Are you ready to play Dino or not a Dino?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, so this is a very simple game, Phil. I'm going to read off 10 different animals, some of which are names of actual real dinosaurs. Some are names that myself, my mom, and Christina have totally made up. Your job is simply to say dino if it's a dino or not a dino if it's not a dino. All you have to do to win is get 6 out of the 10. D-, very low bar.
What do I win?
What do you win? We're gonna send you a trophy. Grace, you don't have an idea?
I was saying you get a high five.
Oh, you get a high five. Nice. We're still, we're
Virtual
still beta testing all this, so we're figuring out what you can actually win. Bragging rights at this point.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I'll take it.
All right, Phil, are you ready to play?
I'm so ready.
Okay, here we go. 10 animals. Simply say it's a dino. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you need to like phone a friend, you can look around in the different Zoom windows. People often will give you thumbs ups or thumbs down. That may be of assistance to you. Here we go.
Don't look at my face because I know what the answers are and I'm going to be trying to hide them from you.
Christina will be probably
how good her poker face is.
I don't have one, so I'm going to hide behind a book.
Yeah, horrible poker faces in our group here. Here we go.
The other side.
Number 1, I'm keeping track, Phil. Got to keep you honest. Number 1, Aerobiceratops. Aerobiceratops.
No.
Aerobiceratops is not a dinosaur. You are 1 for 1. Great start. Number 2, Patagonicus. Patagonicus. And also I can spell any of these should you need it.
Can you spell that one for me?
Sure. PatagonYkus. Patagonicus.
That is a dinosaur.
That is a dinosaur. You are correct. Wow, 2 for 2, Phil. All right.
Whew.
All right, 2 for 2. Next, Ellipticalyx. Ellipticalyx.
I'm going to need that spelled as well.
Okay. Ellipticalyx. ellipticalyx.
I'm going to say that is not a dinosaur.
Phil, you're
That
3 for
sounds
3.
like workout equipment someone saw in their home and they're like, elliptical, let's make a dinosaur.
Phil is already peeking behind the curtain. Okay. Next, you're currently 3 for 3, which is great. Next, parvicursor. Parvicursor.
Oh, that's a tricky one. Parva.
Do we see any thumbs up or thumbs down from the audience? M is thinking very strongly. I don't see a lot of people trying to help you right now. Parvicursor.
I'm seeing some nose.
Is up. I see some nose.
Parvicursor. I'm gonna say yes.
You're gonna say yes. Yes, you are correct. Wow, Phil, 4 of 4. I should mention, Phil, the best anyone's ever done is 9 out of 10. You're on your way. We've got 4 out of 4 thus far.
Pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. Next, Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus.
That sounds so dinosaur-y to me.
Okay. Would you like me to spell it?
Sure.
Okay. Achille saurus. Ankylosaurus.
But it also sounds very conveniently like your Achilles was hurting and you named a dinosaur after it.
It does. But also keep in mind, a lot of dinosaurs are named for one specific feature or part of the body.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to say it is a dinosaur.
I shouldn't have said anything. Good. Yes, that's correct. It is a dinosaur. Ankylosaurus is actually a dinosaur.
Wow. Does it have a giant heel?
I'm not actually sure.
Or was it found with like an arrow in its heel? Maybe that
it was found with an arrow straight through its heel. All right. 5 of 5, number 6. Let me make sure I pronounce all of these correctly. Equininox. Equininox.
Equininox.
Equininox. Phil, I'm loving your faces.
I'm going to say not a dinosaur.
No, Equininox is not a dinosaur. It is a sports club. And
yes.
Again. Okay. Wow. 6 for 6. All right.
Somebody misses working out.
No. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Next one. Yogopteryx.
Whoa.
Yogopteryx.
That sounds cool. I want that to be a dinosaur, so I'm going to say it's a dinosaur.
Phil, you are no longer.
No!
That is your first incorrect. Yogopteryx or Yogateryx.
Oh, I should have heard the yoga. I should have had you spell it.
Yep. There are alternate pronunciations often. So you have gotten, I think, 5 right, 6 right? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right, 1 wrong. Still pretty great. Next, this one's hard to say. Shuvuia. Shuvuia.
Can you spell it for me?
I can, and it's not going to help. Here we go.
Oh, no.
Shuvuuia. Exactly. Shuvuuia. Shuvuia.
I'm going to say it is a dinosaur.
It is a dinosaur because I would not make up something that ridiculous. Yes, that is a dinosaur. You've now gotten 7 right, 1 wrong in the home stretch. Haplokyrus. Haplokyrus.
I'm going to say it is a dinosaur.
It is a dinosaur. That is correct. Phil, you've already won the game. You've gotten 8 out of the 10 thus far. 1 more, and this will allow you to tie for the greatest score ever. Here we go. Lululemon.
That is tough.
Lululemon. Would you like the alternate pronunciation?
I would love to hear it.
Okay. The alternate pronunciation is 24-hour fitnessosaurus.
That sounds so dinosaur-y to me, but just in case, I'm going to say not a dinosaur.
It is not a dinosaur. You are correct. Phil, I feel like you probably know the theme of our Not Dinos today.
We should all be working out more than sitting around.
I'm scratching you. I'm just like hanging from the rafters doing pull-ups. Phil, you got 9 out of 10. You crushed Dino or not a Dino. You have, for now, tremendous bragging rights. Grace will figure out a prize for you at some point. But now Phil, we're going to come back to you in a second to talk all about bugs and insects. But first, I want to introduce our group of dinos of the day. Remember, our dinosaur of the day is our friend right here, Alvarezsaurus. And I chose this one because there's an entire group of dinosaurs known as Alvarezsaurids, or the Alvarezsauridae. And here is some of them. So I should mention Alvarezsaurus is a little bit bigger than each of these. Medium-sized dog, Alvarezsaurus is a little bigger than our purple friend here. But these are all different types of Alvarezsaurids. And I bring these up because A of all, they're awesome looking. They lived in the late Cretaceous towards the end of the time of the dinosaurs, North America, South America, as well as Asia. But this group, including Albertonicus, including Shuvia, who I can't say correctly every time, and Mononicus, all of these are supposed insectivores. Now, we don't have exact evidence for that. There's no direct evidence to suggest or to know that they're insectivores, like finding insects in their stomach contents or something like that. But they're really small. They have long legs. And we think because of their little pokey single claw and because of their long, slender snout with tiny little teeth that is somewhat reminiscent of today's anteaters, we think that they filled probably an ecological niche that allowed them to eat a bunch of different types of insects. Again, we're not positive, but of all the dinosaurs, this is probably the group that is most likely to be entirely insectivores, or at least opportunistic insectivores, eating insects whenever possible. And we know that insects were around during the time of the dinosaurs because we have a bunch of fossils. We know that during at least the late Cretaceous, we see things like dragonflies and damselflies. We see the predecessors of things that would evolve into the ants that we know today. We see lots of flea-like things trapped in amber. We're going to get into amber in a little bit. For now, all you really need to know about amber is maybe a bug lands in it, and then some guy finds it, and then some guy extracts all the blood and the DNA from there, and then this guy looks at it, and then bingo, dino DNA. That is science. That's how it works. No, that is absolutely not how it works. Just quick sidebar about DNA in general and amber. So DNA degrades way too quickly to have DNA of a quality from the time of dinosaurs that will allow us to use that to actually recreate a dinosaur. The half-life, or the amount of time that DNA usually or can preserve, is estimated about 8 million years. And that is obviously way too young for dinosaurs. And that 8 million years is until there's none of it left. So as DNA degrades over time, it's getting worse and worse to a point where after we think around 8 million years, there's literally none left, at least none that is usable. And so dinosaurs 66 million years ago, we're not going to have DNA that is preserved well enough to be able to get DNA that we could use to recreate a dinosaur. Also, mining of amber is a whole problematic issue, which we might talk about in a little bit, but I'd much rather talk to Phil first. So Phil, going back to you, you are the bug expert. So I have a few questions. I want to start with, like, clearly I'm a huge dinosaur nerd. Everyone knows that. You're insects and bugs. Like, why? So why? Why insects? What led you to love insects as much as you do? Why are you an entomologist? Why insects?
So I'll tell you what, looking around the Zoom chat room, I'm seeing a lot of young faces.
Yep.
And they probably love bugs just as much as I do. And that's kind of where it all started for me. I was, 4 or 5 years old and just knew that I loved running around the backyard, looking for worms, looking for bugs, anything I could find. I was also catching snakes and looking for bones, and just all that was like the best treasure hunt in the world for me.
By the way, where, Phil? Where are you running around?
In Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
So I had a nice state park behind my house, and it was the prairie with a little bit of woods, and it was just this amazing habitat full of really cool butterflies. And then when I was 7, I signed up for a summer camp that taught me how to catch butterflies, and it was taught by a scientist who was traveling the world, discovering new species. And I realized at that age that I was like, wait, this is like a job you can do as an adult? And I just kind of fell in love with it. And I realized that I wanted a career that would take me around the world, that would lead me to explore new places, but not just to say I've been there, but to discover something new. And even as 8, 9, 10-year-olds, some of us out there in this summer camp, we were catching butterflies that had never been documented in Colorado before.
Cool.
So it was a really cool feeling to be that young and to be able to contribute to science and to have a record of something. And I was like, if I can do that at that age, imagine what I could do when I'm old enough to drive and boat. And
I've never thought about it like that until right now, in that paleontology and entomology are similar in that you can find new things all the time. Like if you study big cats, right? I'm pretty sure we've found and discovered all the big cats on the planet, but we have no idea how many more dinosaur species are out there to be discovered. There are probably literally millions of insect species we still have not documented and discovered yet. So in that way, they're very similar.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've actually never noticed that too. But yeah, it's just this, when you look at the earth, you're just like, there's so much more to learn. And that is super exciting. And it's super motivating to just get out there every day. And there's new species in people's backyards as well.
Yeah.
There's this amazing study done in Los Angeles where they set up these traps in people's yards, 30 yards over 30 days, and they found 30 new species of flies in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles.
It's crazy. So they're all over the place, these discoveries waiting to be made. And,
yeah, did you hear about the giant butterfly they found in London with like a 1.5 foot, 2 foot wingspan? Did you hear about this? No, it turned out it was just an urban moth. Anyway, that was really bad. So Phil, wow, I should see myself out after that.
We're in a fight, Dustin.
What?
We're in a fight.
I had to do one dad joke. It's one of the bingo squares. So Phil, you go all over the world. You've studied lots of different insects. Can you tell us a couple of your favorites? I don't know if you have a specific favorite, a couple of ones that really are near and dear to you.
I love the butterflies. And
Okay.
there's one butterfly in particular I think is really fascinating every time I see it. And it's called the clear wing butterfly. And a lot of people are used to butterflies having all this color, but then some of them have evolved to have very transparent wings. So it looks like window panes. So they're found in shadier areas of the rainforest or in higher elevation rainforest where it's a lot cooler. And every time you see them, it's just like the coolest thing in the world because they're really hard to find. They got clear wings. So as they fly, they camouflage really well. And the one place you can find a lot of them is on poisonous plants. And they're drinking poisonous nectar to become poisonous themselves, which I love finding those types of ecological interactions where you're just like amazed that what you're witnessing right now is something important to the evolution of this species. That interaction with that butterfly and that plant, it's the only butterfly that goes on that plant. It drinks all this poison to become poisonous. Then when that male mates with the female also becomes poisonous from the male, giving her poison. And then their offspring also have poison. So those eggs are protected all from that one little thing of that male drinking that poisonous flower. So I love finding those. I love me some good giant beetles. Anytime I find a rhinoceros beetle, they have those big horns on the front.
Yep.
Those are really exciting. I've put them on my face before and I have regretted it because they have really, really sharp claws.
Really
but when you're in the jungle long enough, sometimes you get a little bored and you're like, what are we going to do today? Let's find a giant bug and stick it on our face and see what happens. Face bug.
I don't know if you actually started Facebook, but I will give you credit as the first face bugger. Is there actually like a person who did this, or is this your idea?
I talked to entomologists decades older than me, and they're like, this is just a thing that happens. They said they were doing it in the 80s and the 70s. When you're out there in the jungle, boredom kicks in and you just get some ideas, and one of them is sticking giant bugs on your face.
Put a bug on your face. Okay. So switching gears slightly, do you eat bugs?
I do.
Okay, because I know there's been a lot of talk recently about how insects are a tremendous source of sustainable protein, but a lot of people obviously have a little bit of aversion to doing that. And I'm curious to know, like, your experience with eating bugs in different parts of the world, and if you see any way in the future for us in the United States, generally speaking, for people to be more okay with starting to eat more insects.
Yeah, I mean, listen, countries all over the world eat insects, not as just a protein they need to survive, but as a delicacy. I've had giant beetle grubs that live inside palm trees, so it tastes like heart of palm. In Mexico, they have the best grasshoppers. Oh my gosh, they cook them in this chili lime and spice sauce, and it's incredible. Leafcutter ant queens.
Mm-hmm.
The leafcutter ants are really delicious, and there's about 1,600 species of insects that are eaten around the world, all different flavors. I've had ants that taste like lime. There's things that taste like bacon, chocolate. Some have more protein, some have more fat. So they're healthy, they're delicious, they're diverse. And the best way I've gotten people to kind of get over it is to actually think about the evolution of insects themselves.
Okay.
So 400 million years ago,
great segue. This is what I was going to talk about next. Go ahead.
there was a bunch of crustaceans, like shrimp, like crab, like lobster in the ocean. And those crustaceans went up onto land and evolved this separate lineage, that we know as insects and arthropods. So the way I look at some of these bugs is just think of them as land shrimp, right? If you looked at a shrimp on its own, who would want to eat a shrimp if you just saw that? But yet we know they're pretty delicious.
Yeah.
And we just got to get over it with the land things because they are very sustainable. I think we got to put a lot more investment into farming them and harvesting them in a mass producing fashion. But I think it's a great alternative to some of these other meats that are out there because they're honestly pretty tasty.
I love the term land shrimp. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It just takes time and conversations like this and people becoming more aware to slowly chip away at that stigma because it is a tremendous source of sustainable protein. But since you mentioned—
to add to that, M, who I don't think is sponsored by Chirp Chirps, wants me to promo Chirp Chirps. They're cricket chips and she uses cricket protein in cookies.
Oh, I love those. They're real good.
Yeah.
Chirp Chirps.
Chirp Chirps.
You guys put that in the chat box. So that
cricket protein flour cookies. All right.
Cricket protein flour cookies. Nice. So Phil, you mentioned insects that live, the first land shrimp. I love that. First land shrimp. So there are different size and shapes insects during the time of the dinosaurs, right? I think we hear a lot about them being like ginormous and much larger than they are today. And for the most part, there were still some small ones, but some of them were a little bit bigger. They're not like these ginormous things like the size of a car. But generally speaking, a lot of insects during the time of dinosaurs were larger. Why? Do you know why we think that is and how that was possible?
So there's a few theories, and the leading theory has to do with the air, right? And in the air at that time was a lot of oxygen because plants started to really, really take off. And as we know, plants eat carbon dioxide and they give off oxygen. So there's this huge surplus of oxygen into the air. And it turns out that the limiting factor in the size of insects is what's in the air. And it has to do with the way that insects breathe. And they have these spiracles on their side. Imagine instead of breathing through your mouth, you have these holes all along the side of you. And these holes don't generally have active respiration. So we can breathe in and breathe out with using our muscles. With insects, they just have these holes in them that air has to travel through into smaller tubes, into smaller tubes, into smaller tubes throughout their body. So if there's not enough, if the concentration of oxygen isn't high enough in the air, then as the air goes through those tubes, the oxygen kind of runs out and it can't give oxygen to the entire insect. So back then, there was a lot more oxygen in the air, maybe twice as much as there is now, meaning breathing was easy. So these insects just evolved to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And like you said, they're not car-sized, but I mean, the dragonfly was about 1.5 feet, maybe even 2 feet. And they think that for a while, that was like the top predator in the air. So you can imagine that for the things living back then, if they saw a giant dragonfly coming around, that would be like seeing a giant pterodactyl flying through because there was nothing else flying like that in the air. Insects were the first to take flight.
That's true. I like that you mentioned pterodactyls too. Those are the first vertebrates.
Pterosaurs. Sorry, do I have to say
No, you're right. No, the bugs obviously flying, but first vertebrates to ever fly were the pterosaurs. Phil, I have another question. I know, I hope I don't get too personal with this, but I understand that about a year ago, you, with the help obviously of your beautiful wife, you guys brought a new life into this world. And I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about that with our friends here.
We did.
I also have a picture if you want me to share that as you are talking.
You could share it. Let's see what the photo is. Set some context here.
Okay. We'll start with just this one right here. It looks like maybe a zit. You got a big zit on your back? What are we talking about here?
Oh boy, that's no zit. That's my baby growing back there.
Okay.
And it's a fly baby, otherwise known as a maggot. But yeah, so this is something that happens when you spend enough time in the tropics. And it's, for entomologists, it's a thing that I remember hearing about in college that, you know, there's these professors I had that had spent years in the rainforest. And then eventually you get one of those things growing in your skin. And it's called a bot fly. And the way that it gets in there, it's not like the fly itself lands on you and lays an egg. It's actually really fascinating. The bot fly is pretty big. She tackles a mosquito. She lays eggs on the mosquito. And then when the mosquito lands on you, because they know how to find you really well, the heat from your skin tells those bot fly eggs to hatch, they jump off, they dig into your skin, and they start to eat your flesh and grow. Oh, there's my little baby. Look at that.
There you go.
So
So
you
beautiful.
look in the very,
This is like
look
your
in the very
ultrasound.
center there.
This is your ultrasound, right? Basically.
Yes. So you see those little black dots all on the outside of it. You can look in the center, and there's this kind of like little black, those are spines. They're all backwards facing spines because this thing has evolved to not get pulled out. So if you try to yank on it, all those black dots dig into your skin, and it will stay in there as long as it needs to before, eventually it would get to the size of like the end of your pinky, and it would jump out, and it would pupate and turn into a fly, and a beautiful little story. So that was, you could say it was painful.
Mm-hmm.
I still get like kind of phantom, like little things back there where I'm like, is botfly back? It's not back. It's gone.
So this is not something that you got and they're like, oh, I need to get this removed like a tick. This is like, no, you made the conscious choice to let it grow and pupate in your skin and then allow it to birth itself and come out.
Yeah, I'd recommend everybody else, you should probably get it removed. It wasn't very fun. I would wake up at 2 a.m. with like this crazy pain. But for an entomologist, I mean, this is like the ultimate experiment. I love insects. I have an insect growing in me. Could it get any better?
Yeah. I just was waiting for the dinosaur to start growing in me. Oh, also you have a whole YouTube channel and you have a whole video documenting the botfly situation, right?
Yes. I have a YouTube channel called The Jungle Diaries, which a lot of cool rainforest discoveries. And then also I have a couple videos on the botfly, and I have another video coming out soon about kind of the result on what we did with the botfly. And let's just say we did some science and we discovered something no one's ever known about this thing. So I'm excited to share that someday.
Awesome. Always more to discover. All right, let's take a pause for a second first I want to remind you guys of our drawings. Remember, we are drawing Alvarezsaurus, quite possibly insectivore, from about 70 million years ago. Let's do a few questions for Phil before we get into looking at those drawings as well as our recap and talking about tomorrow. So hit up.
I have a ton of questions piled up here. First of all, people are really popping off in the chat here. They're very angry to see this botfly this morning.
Why,
and also fascinated.
Who doesn't want to see that?
Maybe envious? I don't know.
I get
it. Jamie has asked, can we put together dino DNA that is found and possibly find at least some or most of the genetic makeup? Shout out to Jamie, a fellow geology major.
Basically, no. We mentioned before, DNA degrades way too quickly. So we can find traces of DNA that's up to about 8 million years old. But even that is really, it's not like of good quality. So anything from dinosaur time, starting about 66 million years ago, at that point, no more DNA, unfortunately, at least at this point. Maybe one day we'll find some way to extract DNA. It's always possible. That's why science is great. But at this point, Jurassic Park ain't real.
Jamie did mention some new research going on using marrow, so something to look into. David asked, did the moth evolve from the butterfly, or did the butterfly evolve from the moth?
Ooh, good question there. It's technically the butterfly evolved from the moth, but even more technically, butterflies are just day-flying moths. So if you look at the tree of life, the kind of the evolution of all these things, it's like moth, 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 butterfly, moth, 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 moth. So butterflies just happen to be a type of moth that started living by day instead of by night. Just had this giant evolutionary explosion of color and different behavior and different morphology. So technically butterflies are a moth, but so yes, butterflies evolved from a moth.
Very cool. Stephen wants to know, do insects have bacteria in their guts as other animals do, making up a microbiome to help with digestion?
Great question.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yes.
Termites are a great example of that. They got to break down wood. They don't have the ability to do that themselves, so they have this really incredible microbiome of these bacteria that just take down wood and turn it into sugars. And there's a lot of insects that have this. And there's even some that will donate that biome to the next generation. So there's these beetles called best beetles. We get some of them in the southeastern United States. If you flip over a log, you'll see this big shiny beetle about that big. And their larvae are kind of semi-social. And the female will kind of hang around them. And she will kind of poop a little bit and make these little balls for the larvae to eat of like semi-digested wood full of that bacteria. And so she gives that biome to her larvae, which then are able to digest wood better. So absolutely. And we know very little about it, so there's much more to be discovered in that worm.
I've got a question from Lirio. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, but they want to know how come all insects don't have hives or queens if it is so successful?
Ooh, that's a good question. The bottom line is there's many ways that insects are successful. The fact that the lineage, that species is alive today means it's very successful. So all these things have different strategies. They all have different advantages and all have different disadvantages. You know, there's plenty of disadvantages to having a hive as well, because you only have one reproductive in there. So your total population of reproductive potential is, you know, maybe 1,000th of others where every single insect out there can reproduce. So if a big storm comes along or a big disease comes through, they may have less genetic diversity than other species. So there is an advantage to that hive living, and it's certainly a more evolved social structure that we're probably going to start to see more of in other insects over a long period of time. But for now, I mean, all these other insects are doing really well out there, so they may not need to evolve to have that kind of social structure to still be flying around everywhere.
Awesome.
This is some of the best set of questions I've heard thus far. These are great.
They are super.
Eric wants to know, did pterodactyls eat insects?
Well, we don't know for certain, again, because, well, insects don't have hard body parts that might fossilize in the stomach contents of a fossilized pterosaur. But yeah, a lot of people think, especially some of the smaller pterosaurs, were definitely, if not exclusively feeding on insects, made it a big part of their diet. It would make sense, but we're not positive.
And you can actually see some of that in the fossil record of, you know, we talked about these giant flying insects. Mm-hmm. One of the things that corresponds when there were fewer giant flying insects is when dinosaurs evolved flight. And they basically think that there's these predators in the air with them that could take them out. And so you can almost look at that also as evidence that dinosaurs were eating insects because it affected the insect evolution so much.
I have two questions from David, who wants to know how fast did ants spread over the world, and what was the first insect that was ever recorded alive? So I guess the first insect to evolve, or the one that we ever
land shrimp. The first land shrimp.
Land shrimp.
Land shrimp. Let me look at this.
I love it when people ask questions that like we don't know the answers to. That's my favorite, because it just means it's a new thing that we get to discover and learn about together.
Yeah. So the most kind of ancestral insect is they're called like firebrats, silverfish, those types of things that you can find underneath logs that kind of flick around a little bit. They look much more like a crustacean than your normal insect does. So if you look up that word, they like firebrats, one of the main ones. I can't think of the other word for it because I'm still finishing my coffee. But yeah, those, they didn't have wings. They were found 400 million years ago, and that's basically what they probably look like. They're very basic segmented things with these 6 legs. And then they started to evolve wings, and then they started to evolve metamorphosis that we talked about. So insects started very rudimentary, just crawling around on the ground, living under stuff, probably eating decaying matter. And then as plants evolved, they started to evolve with them, both eating them and then even pollinating the flowers. That was a massive explosion in evolution for insects, of all these different species working together with plants to pollinate them and spread their seeds.
Can you repeat their names so I can put them in the chat for people to look up?
Yeah, let me
We're really testing you today.
The best common name for it. Yeah, firebrat is one.
Firebrat, that's a cool name. Firebrat.
Firebrat.
That's what.
Silverfish, people call them too.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I have maybe my favorite question that has been asked during this whole Dinos 101 experiment. So Martin wants to know, how much does collecting insects impact populations? I see a lot of people switching to photography, especially with butterflies.
Yeah, well, it kind of depends on the motivation here in the species. So first of all, there are some species of butterflies in particular that are very, very endangered. So we need to leave as many in the wild as we can. There's some even in the US that are on the endangered species list. There's plenty that are like big, bright, and beautiful in Southeast Asia that people are going after, or in Papua New Guinea, the birdwing butterflies. So a lot of them do need to be left out there in the wild. But you also got to look at the reason why people collect insects in the first place. So yes, some of them are pretty. People like to do that, but really it's actually critical data. Some of the best collections and our best resource for knowing what was around at certain times, let's say in Utah in 1960, was somebody collecting butterflies then. And so when you collect a butterfly, you're not just collecting it for the image of it and mounting it for nothing. You actually include data with it. You say who collected it, where it was collected, the time it was collected, the day. So that data sticks with that and it becomes a source of information that scientists can use for forever. So as these private collections grow, lots of times eventually they get donated to museums. So there is an important factor to collecting butterflies. I don't think there's many species around that are going to be harmed by it, but I do think you should think about why you're doing it, and make sure if you do collect them, you include a little label that you put underneath the pin saying, you know, who, what, where, when, and all that kind of information, because that's important. And what we find in our backyards is going to change in 20 years and 30 years. So that specimen could actually end up being valuable. But obviously, you don't need to collect everything you find. Photography is a wonderful way of getting to know butterflies. And I do a lot more photography now these days. I do have an insect collection as well. But to me, photography is fun because you get to really sit and watch and observe. And you spend so much more time just seeing their unique behaviors rather than going out and knowing where they go to be able to collect them.
Great. So that leads me into another great question. Catherine wanted to know, Phil, what are some of your favorite zoos or museums, insect and vertebrate collections, and some good conservation groups and organizations that we could follow?
Well, say the best insect conservation group out there is Xerces, Xerces. They have really amazing guidelines. If you want native pollinators, native plants in your backyard that attract insects, they have really good programs for the monarchs, for all these different species of insects out there that are endangered. So that's the number one organization I'd recommend as a good resource to figure out what you can do to help. What was the first part of the question?
It was, what are some of your favorite zoos or museum collections?
The collections. So a lot of people don't realize that what the public gets to see of a museum is amazing and it's really fun, but it's like Dustin's showing right now. It's a tiny,
it's like 4 or 5%.
Yeah,
usually.
And when you go into the back of a museum, it is amazing. And Smithsonian in particular, I love it. It's one of the biggest insect collections in the world. They have tens of millions of specimens in there. And you just open up drawers and you see these things that were collected in 1812 in South Africa, or, in 1914 in Russia or something. It's just the most incredible resource of not only understanding biology, but history and how things have changed over the last couple of 100 years. So those places, I love those collections. I think the Smithsonian has an amazing collection. The Academy of Natural Science in Philadelphia, I love going to that collection as well. California Academy of Science.
Oh yeah.
Just a lot of these major museums, if you really look into it, you'll realize that they have these amazing things behind the scenes that are just these unreal resources that are so fun to look at and just to open up drawers, and there's a little mystery in there waiting to be studied.
Grace and Christina, can we do one more question? And then I think someone got a bingo, right?
We had 2 that came in right after each other, but we do have a bingo.
Could our bingo winners send you a message letting you know if they'd rather ask my mom a question or hear a story from the museum?
Yeah, Christina, do you want to?
Yeah, Tyrannosaurus was first, and then very soon after followed by Chelsea.
Okay.
Okay, so I have maybe 2 more quick questions. Where do ants go during the fall, winter, or other insects for that matter?
There's different strategies. Generally, they just go underground and they wait it out. So if you're in the middle of winter and the snow melts and you start lifting out big logs, you'll find little ant nests under there, just kind of waiting it out, being cold,
Just
sticking
like we
around.
are doing right now.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of insects will overwinter as an egg or as a cocoon, and then they'll wait for spring to happen, and then they'll hatch as an egg and start to feed, or they'll come out as a butterfly and fly around. There's some that overwinter as adults, and they just kind of wait for it to be warm enough. So they all have different types of antifreeze built into them that are these types of sugars that basically when it gets cold, it prevents their blood from hardening so that they don't actually freeze generally, and that's helps them just survive the winter, and they wait for warmer temps. And the advantage of insects is that their metabolism is dependent on the temperature outside. So if it's cold, their metabolism just plummets, that typical cold-blooded thing. And so when it's really, really cold, their metabolism just shuts off, and they just kind of go into this stasis, and they just wait for it to warm up.
Great. Okay, last question, and then I have a comment of sorts. So this is about evolution. Will the insect body size increase over like 100 generations? And if kept in a controlled environment with increased oxygen levels and food supply, what can be the shortcomings of this?
That's a great question. And whoever thought of that would be a great scientist, because that's something scientists have actually done to test this. And they grew cockroaches in oxygen-rich environments, and they found it was like 5 to 10 generations, the things got bigger. So that's just a few generations. Imagine hundreds of years, like your hypothetical, in oxygen-rich environment, we would have some big cockroaches out there. The disadvantage I can think of is we would be terrified. The main disadvantage is that anything you evolve in a very specific artificial condition is going to only be able to survive in that artificial condition. So you put that out into the real world, not enough oxygen, the thing wouldn't be able to move very much. And so that wouldn't be very nice. But it's okay to do these short-term experiments, because it teaches us something about, by experimenting on cockroaches today, it teaches us about them hundreds of millions of years ago. So that's a really fun science experiment to act out.
All right. So one last thing. We know we have, I dropped a link for Jungle Diaries for your YouTube page, but people want to know, where else can they learn about your work?
Yeah, I was going to ask Phil, before we let you go, can you plug all the cool stuff you do?
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of stuff on Instagram these days, Phil_Torres, a lot of backyard science stuff, and just kind of sharing all that. And there's so much that people can find around them. So during this downtime, if you want cool ideas to do, hit me up there. I'm happy to show you how to kind of explore your yard in a new way. And then on Discovery Channel, I have a new series called Expedition X, where we kind of take on these mysteries all over the world, and I take it on from a scientific angle. And we went to some very wild, creepy, crazy, bizarre places. And of course, I found bugs everywhere, and it was a blast. So yeah, those are the 2 main things. And got a few other projects coming out down the road, but for now, let's stick to those.
Awesome. Thank you. Christina, do we have a decision from our bingo winner?
Yes. So I have a very specific question from Tyrannosaurus, and then I have a more broad question from Chelsea. Dustin, which would you like to field first?
Specific question first.
Okay. From Tyrannosaurus, what would you do if you had one of the 4th floor rooms at AMH to yourself? And is there anything on the 4th floor that is underrated that people normally just gaze through? Super specific, but the context is I was the first person in line for AMH and the first person on the 4th floor. So I had a good 10 minutes to myself, and I almost cried. Yeah, I feel that.
And so for people who don't know, the 4th floor at AMH is the dinosaur floor.
Part of it.
And other fossils.
Part of it.
Okay.
So the 4th floor at AMH
dinosaurs.
are the fossil halls. And I 100% agree with your strategy for exploring. Get to AMH a couple minutes before it opens.
Go straight up.
Immediately to the 4th floor. The lighting is great. You will be by yourself up there. The 4th floor is awesome for a number of reasons. mostly because it has amazing fossils in 4 different halls. What I would do if I could do anything there, I'd want to like parkour and just like run around and climb on top of a bunch of the dinos. That'd be a ton of fun. But the 4th floor is amazing for me. It's probably my favorite fossil hall, not necessarily because of the layout or the way the dinosaurs are mounted, but the layout of the entire 4th floor, because it is one giant cladogram. So a cladogram is a tree that displays evolutionary relationships. And as you walk through the 4th floor, you'll see this black line in the middle of the hall, and then these little kind of alcoves that come out to the side. And that is basically they've taken 300 million years of vertebrate evolution and laid out the 4th floor as if you were walking those 300 million years of evolution. So you're literally doing that as you go through the 4th floor, piecing together, well, the evolution that eventually has led to us, which is a really cool way to lay out a floor and kind of see how things are interconnected through the evolution of vertebrates over 300 million years. So yeah, 4th floor, go up there first. That's my pro tip. What was the second question?
It's from Chelsea, who got bingo just a moment after.
Okay.
And Chelsea's question is she's asking for a story from the Hall of Biodiversity.
Story from the Hall of Biodiversity. Okay, that's a really cool hall. I actually, I'm glad you brought that up because here we go. This is it. Thank you again to AM&H for making these very cool Zoom backgrounds. Look, we're in the Hall of Biodiversity. So the cool thing about this hall, you can only see one of the walls here, and there are really 3 sections to this hall. There's a back hall that has a bunch of video screens and multimedia, and it's about how humans are polluting everything. We're killing the earth. We're causing mass extinctions. They're not wrong. Then in the middle, there's a mock-up of an actual Central African rainforest with nearly 1 million fake leaves and dozens of real taxidermy animals scattered throughout, including a full-size gorilla. That's your job next time. Try to find the hidden gorilla in there. And then the other side is this wall of basically biology ADD. And so there are 3 very different halls in the Hall of Biodiversity, and that is because biodiversity literally means all of life, right? And if you're a museum curator, how do you display all of life in a museum hall? And the 3 people had 3 very different reasons or things that they thought should be displayed and couldn't agree upon anything. And by the time the hall opened, they would not talk to each other and would only communicate via email. And that is why you have 3 very different iterations of what a Hall of Biodiversity should look like. Yeah, I mean, we're scientists. We disagree about stuff. Fair.
World's worst group project.
So can we, before we, let's see what else we did. Oh, we got to look at our drawings. You guys, can you start holding up your amazing Alvarez-saurus renditions? I'm excited to see these. Phil, I guarantee, before we even get into this, you've never seen paleo art quite like these.
Come on.
Every day, these are amazing. Catherine looks great. I like that we got a potential food source. This one's name is Alvin. Into that. Jada, always coming correct. Let's see what Jada's got here. So I like the pink color. Oh, also Alvin. Okay, popular. Megan. Let's see what we got from Megan here. Ooh, I like this one. It's almost like a chicken. I like the different color speckles there. I like the little stabby claws in the front. Danelle. Let's see what we got from Danelle here. Danelle, I like the black and white, very minimalist rendition. What is the name? I'm going to unmute you. What is the name?
Well, you said they were opportunistic eaters, so I eat what I want to source.
I eat what I want to source. I love that. Well done. All right, let's see. Agus, did you spotlight video? Am I saying your name right? Is it Agus? Yes? Okay, cool. Agus, every day comes with a Post-it note drawing. I like this one, guys, rearing back a little bit. That one looks great. A lot of professional paleo artists. Eric, let's see what you got here. Eric, that looks great. I like the details around it. Oh, Mr. Termite. That's good. That's good. Into it. Let's see what do we got here. Oh, we have like an entire paleo art gallery here. You guys are crushing it. Look at those. Is that Stevie? I think Stevie's a good name there.
That's my dog.
It is your dog's name. Margot. Margot's got a digital rendition here. This is Albert, the Alvarez-saurus. I like his little spiky mohawk. That's good. I did not forget, Margot, that you won Dino or Not a Dino yesterday. The next time we don't have a special guest spurt, you're going to choose. Or did I mess that up already? Oh, that was Daniel.
Keisha and Daniel won yesterday.
Listen, days of the week don't mean anything anymore. Moving on.
Stevie.
Yesterday is still a day.
Is that who you named your dino after? It's Stevie.
And Alva, these are so cute. I love the action sequence. Jumping up in the air. Those look great. What else we got? Amazing. We got Bryn here. Ollie and Alfie. Oh, very cute. Very cute. I like the forearm feathers. Pretty nice. Let's see, Tony. We got from Tony here another great Vizzy the Alvarezsaurus from Argentina. It's important to know where these things came from. I like that. Sherlina. Donut. That might be the best dinosaur name I've ever heard.
Great name.
Donut is a phenomenal name for Dino. Inez. Let's see what we got. That is, wow.
Gorgeous.
Wow. Gregorio the Alvarezsaurus. Gregorio.
Is that a reference to oh my god, the Franz Kafka story? Which
I
is
have no
about
idea
an
what you're talking
insect.
about.
Never mind.
Oh, Metamorphosis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gregor.
Was that a reference to Kafka? Well, anyway.
Anyway.
Wait, so Natty's up right now. She, in addition to her drawing, has some awesome bug jewelry.
Oh, really cool.
Whoa.
Oh, nice. She had a 3D printed dinosaur egg yesterday. Are you live in a museum, Natty? What is? And you got the head, crushing it. Let's see. Do we have any more drawings we need to share? I don't see. Oh, here we go. Rivers and Lauren. Oh, I like that one. That one's cute. Like the black. He seems very happy. Very happy. Let's see what we got here from Amy. Ooh, nice. Atticus. Atticus looks great. Do we have any more? Bella and Emmert always have great drawings. That looks red. Ooh, I like the simplicity of that name. Red, that comes in second just after Donut. Lenosaurus Rex. Another beautiful drawing, another beautiful headdress today. Let's see what Yasmin's got here. Alva, I like that. Alva's good. Kelly, you didn't make a drawing, but I just want to say hi to you. How are you? Oh, I think I got a couple more. Last couple here. Bugosaurus.
Nice.
Bugosaurus, that's good. Oh, Rizzo. How about Rizzo? That's a good name. Oh, look at this drawing. We even put it in an environment. Looking great. You guys, these are so good. Ryan and Sydney, Indiana. Oh, that's a cool name. It's a cool name. Another one, Alvarez. All right. We got, let's see, Fred. Another Fred. Fred 4. RIP to Fred's 1 through 3. Ooh, Niles, Jay-Z. This is Jay-Z, the Alvarezsaurus. Okay, into it. All right, those are beautiful. Again, please upload those, tag me. I want to see those on both Insta and Twitter. I'm gonna get rid of my background here, True's virtual background.
Okay, and on that note, remember to send these on Instagram if you want them to go up on the page that one of our regulars has created. It's @ofthedailyDino. They'll put your dino pictures up on Insta for all to enjoy.
You guys, this has been absolutely great. First of all, Phil, thank you so much for joining us. I've learned a ton about dinosaurs just today. We put all of your info in the chat box. You guys go check out Phil's stuff. I'm enjoying watching your adventures from home for sure.
Thanks, man.
Of course. You guys, tomorrow, oh, Phil, you actually know our special guest tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
To be fair, our science communicator circles are pretty small. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we've talked about birds, but we haven't talked about the movement of these avian living dinosaurs. So tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Annie Novak is joining us to talk all about birds and migration and how you, even in quarantine, can grow food on your rooftop, even if you live in the middle of New York City. Annie Novak is tomorrow. We're going to talk about migration. We're going to talk about living extant avian dinosaurs. But for now, you guys, I don't care if you're excavating an amber quarry or simply burrowing deep into Phil's back to drop off your larva. Never stop digging. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much to Phil. Peace out. I love you guys. Happy Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Bye, everyone.
3, 2, 1.